you doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to the first of a few best of specials we'll be releasing as we prepare for Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind that'll kick off at the end of March. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast, as you all know, is the only wrestling podcast that brings you back now over 30 years with vintage audio featuring some of the biggest names at that time. Today, we're going to review two shows from February of 1991. They were show numbers 96 and 97 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which aired February 10th and February 17th on 1240 a.m. WGBB in West Babylon, New York. And it's going to be a good one today. I do want to plug our Patreon account before we get started here. Go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. $5 a month gets you in the door. You get access to all the archives. We're revamping the Patreon model, which will be updated and revised by the end of March. So, but check it out. Continue your membership. Continue to relive the history by going to patreon.com/John Arezzi, and that's going to help continue this journey as we go into the era of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind. But first, I'd like to bring on our co-host and our creative director, Marsh. Marsh, come on down, as Bob Barker used to say. Hey-o. Seems like it's been forever since I saw you, about an hour.
Yeah, it's been about an hour, give or take. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, because I decided to bring you in a different world.
I know, it's been pretty
You're now
cool.
in a different world with me, too.
It's a good ride. I'm into it.
Yeah. So. Baseball. It's baseball. That's what we're doing. Just to kind of give you all an update, I'm launching two new baseball podcasts. Marsh is going to be a part of that as our creative director. One is with the former Mets manager, Terry Collins, which I'm so excited about. So we're launching the Terry Collins Show. We just taped a sample episode, which will go up on all the platforms. And the other show is The Brushback with JP Ricciardi. And that is going to be an inside baseball show. JP, 43 years in the game, lifer and general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, executive as assistant to the president of baseball ops for the San Francisco Giants, assistant GM for the New York Mets for many years. Also one of the guys that was on that original Moneyball team for the Oakland A's. So he was instrumental. What a storied career. He was also my roommate with John Gibbons back in 1981 in Shelby, North Carolina, when he was a prospect for the New York Mets. So a full circle moment back in baseball with two major shows after completing a season with the Gibby Show last year. And John got hired as the bench coach of the New York Mets. So, And Marsh, now I brought you into the world of baseball.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I definitely grew up on baseball. I mean, I grew up in San Diego, and I remember going to a ton of Padre games, and everyone in my family is super into baseball. Like, they know all the stats of everything. I was a lot more casual about it, so I'm still learning a ton as we're going, but it's really cool. It's really neat to see the history of all these people.
Yeah. Well, Terry was the last manager to bring the Mets to the World Series in 2015, and that viral ejection argument that he had, which is up there on YouTube and everywhere. I mean, Terry is he managed more games for the New York Mets than any manager in their history, and the fact that I'm now kind of a baseball insider and getting to work with these individuals, I think the shows would be massive, especially the Terry Collins Show with the New York Mets fan base. And everyone who's been following me in my career know that I bleed orange and blue for the New York Mets and have since I was a little kid. So this is a dream come true for me. I'm kind of pinching myself. But we also have wrestling. I also have wrestling, and I'm going to go back. We're going to go back and have some fun. So basically what we're doing here is we didn't want to go a long, long time without, the end of the era of Pro Wrestling Spotlight on the weekly, covering each and every show. And then we launched Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind. So let's give the fans some content. And
Yeah.
so we're doing kind of like best ofs.
Yeah.
And today we're going back to February 1991.
February 91. We're kind of batching a few of them. And yeah, we took a little more of a break than we intended to just due to I got sick and then I was in pain and dealing with all that. So,
Yeah.
life happens and we're back on it though for a while before I have to
Yeah.
take a small hiatus for a little wedding thing I
You got
got
a
to
little
do.
wedding thing you have on your agenda.
Yeah. And then,
I'm down in Florida. I just got back from Florida for spring training and meeting with Terry and getting content for Tunnel to Towers, a wonderful nonprofit organization. I'm assisting them as getting book 10. And I'm going back down to Florida next week, and I'll be down there for 11 days. So we wanted to bring get the fans something to kind of enjoy as we as you get married and to more of the baseball world.
yeah, I mean, and there's fun stuff going on in February 91. Do you want me to dig in a little bit to set the scene, let you know what
Let's
was
do it.
happening?
Let's absolutely do it.
This was right as we're getting close to WrestleMania this year. It was right after they had announced that they were moving venues. This is for Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan. And they had that potential security threat is the story we've always been told, that they believed that they couldn't secure the larger location. So they brought it to a smaller location, which then made it an immediate sellout because they had sold more tickets than the seating in this one. So there are people who are going to be stuck without seats who bought tickets for WrestleMania, and that was a huge point of contention.
Yeah, that was a big issue then because the Gulf War was underway. They were exploiting it with this angle with Slaughter. It was not tasteful by any stretch of the imagination. And the business was kind of in a decline because of, things that were going on. But they were not able to sell out a coliseum or an outdoor venue, so they had to bring it inside.
And that's how you guys were reporting it. But I mean, Bruce Pritchard sticks to his guns that they would have sold it out had they stayed in there, and it was strictly a security issue. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It seems like it was
that.
not. Yeah. Do you think too? Because this is right before. This is 91, so the real controversial stuff doesn't really start dropping off till next year.
This was 91. This was February. The Zaharian trial was going to take place in another few months. So this is when it was really just getting started.
Okay.
Yeah. The trial, the arrest of Zaharian, the trial taking place in June. So this was all pre-craziness.
Yeah. Okay. But it's the start of it, and so that has a lot to do with it. And you got Hogan on top, so
yeah.
At the same time,
just the crazy angle exploiting a war, which didn't go over.
And we've always heard that wrestling is almost a mirror of the culture at the time. With the war being so prevalent, do you think they'd have been better off in any way of just ignoring it altogether? Or do you think just the idea of how they acknowledged it was incorrect?
It was a war. You don't exploit a war. You just don't do it. Where people are getting killed and our troops are getting killed and, innocent civilians are getting killed. You stay away from it. You don't turn it into a wrestling angle. You just don't. And especially a main event for WrestleMania. Come on, guys. And poor Sergeant Slaughter, who was like America's hero, and then he becomes an Iraqi sympathizer. Come on.
That was the craziest part to me. In my mind, I was thinking I could understand them pushing the Sheik in this moment because even in like the 30s and 40s, they had the top German and Japanese
and
heels
there was
at the
always
time.
the Japanese heels and the German heels. Those were
The
part of the
Russians,
villains of wrestling, but not when it's still ongoing. We're in the middle of a war. It wasn't like it was World War II or World War One or the Korean War or whatever. This was an active conflict that the United States was involved with, and they're turning it into WrestleMania.
And the turncoat thing, I think, was particularly distasteful.
It was. Sergeant Slaughter should have never been put in that position.
Yeah, that was the worst one. That was probably worse, but equally terribly done.
Isn't there a backstory? There's a backstory because Slaughter left because of the Hasbro deal.
Yeah.
And then when he was coming back, this was Vince's way of getting back at him. Oh, yeah, you're America's hero, pal. Not anymore.
Not only did he leave because of the Hasbro deal, but it really locked in that Slaughter was going to own the rights of Sergeant Slaughter.
Yes. So
it was the first IP, I think, that got away from Vince.
Yeah. So, he was vindictive and, anyway, I mean, Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon. The rhyme and reason for him to do anything is always it's retribution and revenge. Similar to somebody that is similar in character to him, which I won't mention any names.
Who could it be? Yeah, the only other one I could think that where they turned, where it was just particularly like horribly done, but not as ill-timed, was when they had Hacksaw become part of Team Canada. You're like, what are you doing? What is this?
What kind of evil mind, what kind of like deranged mind comes up with these things when it's affecting people's lives and, their character in the ring? And it's just kind of like, it just, when you really analyze it all these years later, and now everything else that's going on, you're hearing new stories every day about the mindset and the way this guy booked.
Yeah.
It's like, what a warped individual.
I mean, even the industry at the time was so insane that, it was still of the time where if you got stabbed or cut or attacked by a fan, it was like this badge of honor. I did the right thing. This is good news. You know what I mean? Where it's like nowadays, someone even just comes over the rail and it's like, how does this happen? Why would this, you know what I mean? Like, it's this, how could this be, where that was the goal before? Like, if they weren't getting over the rail, if you didn't have to have security lining around, like, it was bad work, It's insane. All of it was insane. It was encouraged. At the same time, though, NWA is going under a massive change. This is as they're shifting into WCW for the first time. So that's happening. Let's see. I don't have Donnie's report up front. I have a second report from him later. But this is where, WrestleMania 7 was sold out. It's moving to an arena that holds 15 seats or 15,000 seats.
15 seats.
Yeah, 15 seats. Got two rows.
No, sold that.
Yeah, but 20,000 tickets were already sold, so it was just already a sellout. And you brought on Joel Goodard to talk about his show coming up. And one of the things I thought was notable in there was he talks about how the fans in Philly, in the Philadelphia area, are the greatest in the world and the most intense. Like, he knew. And I wonder if Paul was keenly aware of this too. I wonder if that was a big chunk of why Paul went to Philadelphia so early.
Well, it was definitely a hardcore hot town, and Joel Goodard was the precursor to ECW, Tri-State Wrestling. His financial backer was Todd Gordon. And yeah, I'm sure Paulie was certainly aware of what was going on. And Philadelphia was always a hot town for wrestling. Very hardcore fans. I mean, that's where WWF had their TV tapings for many, many years. Every 3 weeks, it was a wrestling town. NWA always did well there.
Yeah. Do you think ECW would have worked at all if it started anywhere else?
That's a good question. Maybe New York.
Yeah.
But Philly was ripe and primed for it. And I really can't see any other territory, any other area in the country where the fans were that bloodthirsty.
Wow. Let's see. This is our first clip we have here. I believe you have Tony Rumble on. Talk about a few things.
Tony Rumble. I miss that guy. Anyway, let's get on the line with Tony Rumble. Tony, of course, the the Boston bad boy, right from Beantown himself, or Dorchester, or the Combat Zone. And Tony, you with us?
Yeah, I certainly am there, John.
How's everything?
I don't know, but you had a mistake there. I think if you added up them guys' age of their underwear, you'd have over 100. That's unbelievable.
That's probably true. I'm here also with Vinnie Lafranco, who is he helps us out as our I guess one you would call him a researcher, producer,
all around, John.
And gopher.
What's the gopher, Tony?
I don't know. They've been talking about you, Vinny. I don't know. These are just things I hear.
He was just mentioning.
I don't want to start any trouble between you guys.
He was mentioning off air to me, Vinny. I guess you wanted to ask Tony a question about Texas.
Yeah, Boston bad boy. What's the problem between you and Texas? I happened to catch that yesterday on the air.
What problem is that?
Well, didn't you speak to Kerry Von Erich saying there's nothing good about Texas? And I happened to catch that. Was that? That was you, right?
What's that?
That was you, I saw, right?
Of course it was. Well, I told, and you're wrong. It wasn't Kerry. It was his brother Kevin.
Oh, excuse me. Did I say
Kerry? Any of them. I don't like any of them. I think there's Chris Von Erich too, and then there's that old man of theirs. I mean, he's as goofy as ever. Certain people in Texas, like I told him, me and Willie Nelson hang out together. I mean, I have friends all over the world. I have affiliates all over the world. Texas is just one of the places I have a lot of friends. But I don't have any friends in Denton, Texas, or wherever them nitwits are from. But, I tell it like it is. What, you don't think he's going to walk into where I am and run his mouth on me, do you there, Vinny?
No, I don't think that.
That ain't never going to happen, brother. I don't care. Well, how big their reputation is, they ain't bad as I am ever.
That's why they call you the Boston bad boy.
And that's right. That's absolutely the truth.
Well, some people call him Boston bad breath.
Well, that's the people that, maybe they just have a lack of
education,
levity in their system.
Well, Tony?
The best you could come up with is Boston Bad Breath. You know that. Who's the one to think of that team?
You're probably someone from Dorchester.
No, I told you I'm from West Roxbury, John. I heard you say it. Via the Combat Zone in the City of Champions, Boston, Massachusetts. So you might want to write that down so when you do refer to me,
okay,
you'll
I'll write that right now. Hold on. I'm ready.
Yeah, hold that down.
Okay, write it down. Okay.
Tell him to turn the pencil the right side up, Vinny, will you?
It's a crayon.
Crayon, wait, whatever. Crayola, I know.
But anyway...
they have a new color forms coming out with the Boston Bad Boy in it.
Are you kidding me?
Hey, would I lie? I don't make things up. I mean, I'm as popular as ever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to be up in that New York area there.
Well, that's what we want to talk about here. We understand that ICW has merged with World Class Championship Wrestling for probably the longest name ever in a wrestling organization.
The longest call letters. Hey, we just call it International World Class Championship Wrestling. We don't use the letters. Just because.
Let me just ask you to say that 5 times fast, okay?
What's that?
Say it 5 times fast.
International World Class Championship Wrestling. What's so hard about that now?
That's only one.
IWCCW.
That's only one time, Tony. You said 5 times.
We don't go by the letters. Mm-hmm. That might be good in print, so they don't have to write it out all the time. But we don't follow. We're like different in the IWCCW. I'll even give you the letters. But in International World Class, we don't follow nobody.
Well, you guys are coming up here to the New York area, and you're going to be doing a couple of television tapings. You got some new stars coming in, and some old superstars returning to the New York area.
Yeah.
February.
It's going to be a happening time.
February 20th, which is on a Wednesday. You guys will be in upstate New York at Kutcher's, and that is a resort area. Or is that a hotel? I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a hotel resort. I mean, it's a big, beautiful place up in the Catskills.
Big skiing area up there.
But, who? Yeah, right. I mean, there's a bunch of nitwits go there to relax and stuff. I'm going there. I have a job to do. I don't care the setting. I'm as happy as a big, beautiful resort as I am in a back alley. It don't matter to me where I am as long as there's a fight going down.
Uh-huh.
And there's going to be fights going down. And in February 22nd, we're going to even be closer to the big Snapple there.
You're going to be in Brooklyn, New York, and that's going to be Friday, February 22nd at Our Lady.
This is the new Mecca of professional wrestling.
This building is probably more famous than Madison Square Garden. It's Our Lady of Guadalupe.
There you go. That's the Mecca now. I'm telling
Say
you.
what?
That's
the Mecca of wrestling. Our Lady of Guadalupe in Brooklyn, New York. And of course, it'll be the Brooklyn debut of Curly Moe. Will be here.
Oh yeah.
I saw him on television yesterday. Tony, I've had disagreements with you in the past, but let me tell you something. Get this guy out of wrestling. Get your Undertakers. Get some of your stable, Tasmanian Devil. Get him out of the business.
It's a Tasmaniac.
I'll say it's
Tasmaniac. Just because he has similarities to a cartoon. There ain't no animation running through any one of the Brotherhood members.
Okay. But really...
Let's get that straight right now.
Tony, do me a favor. Huh? Do me a favor and get this Curly Mo out of wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you like him, maybe I'll have him call up on your show.
No, I wouldn't take the call. I couldn't handle it.
Do you know that Lake Winnipesaukee Domino's is breaking all kinds of records now since he lived there?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, they can't keep the pizza. They're like McDonald's now. They have so many served, but it just says how many times Curly Mo's ordered. Mm-hmm. You know, big sign out front.
Well, you got some great for the ICW champion.
International world class.
But there's two champions, Kevin Von Erich.
Well, yeah, right. See,
and Vic Steamboat.
Well, what happens is there was a champion in each, whereas the Undertaker's my pride and joy. There was no world class tag team champions when the merger happened, so they were automatically made international world class champion tag team. Whereas with Von Erich and Steamboat, they have two champions, so now they have to. It's going to be broken down to one, and the other will be like a. Let me think how you would remember it. Maybe like how the NWA used to do it with like, for example, like Ric Flair would go into Portland, Oregon, and wrestle the champion of the Pacific Northwest. That's what those belts will signify when there is a set champion.
Lot to unpack.
There's so much going on in there.
Loved it.
Let's start with Tony Rumble. Who is Tony Rumble?
I love Tony Rumble. Tony Rumble was a Boston guy who became a manager, wrestler. He was also the booker at that time, the TV commentary. And he's passed away. He's not with us any longer. But he served as a manager. And the Tasmaniac is obviously Taz that is referencing, as well as the other part of his stable were the Undertakers, which were these big 400-pounders, brothers. I guess they were brothers. And it was right, it was around the time also the WWF was going to be launching the Undertaker. So they actually gave up the name to, I guess they got $3,000 from WWF for this of the Undertakers, whatever. But anyway, Tony Rumble had him at my convention. The Boston Bad Boy was just a great promo guy, great guy. And when he referenced Kutcher's, first and foremost, Kutcher's was a place that was, if you ever heard of the movie Dirty Dancing.
Yeah,
years ago. I mean, it was a pretty big movie with Patrick Swayze, and
they were just playing out the gym 2 days ago.
It was like a place where predominantly Jewish people went to be at a resort up in New York, and it got, for this purposes, it became a wrestling venue. And then, the other venue which was mentioned was Our Lady of Guadalupe, which I was making fun of. I mean, me and Tony had an interesting relationship because before I really got to know him, and this was around the time I was just getting to know him, I thought he was an obnoxious guy that I wasn't really warming up to personally. So I was being a little condescending to him on some of this stuff. But as I got to know him and appreciate his work and get to know him as an individual, I really was very fond of him. And if any of the patrons out there want to go, or you can even go on YouTube and look for the 1992 Wrestling Fans Weekend of Champion footage, there's a segment there with Tony and a little kid at the time named Jeffrey Mangles, who was kind of the youngest little wrestling reporter. and they go back and forth on some stuff, and it was really cool. And then Tony also mentioned Color Forms. Do you remember Color Forms? You know what Color Forms is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
It was a toy. Color Forms was like this. It was these little stick-on, let's say for like Mickey Mouse, you get a little there's a plastic box, and you see the Disney castle, whatever, and then you have all these little peel off things that you'd stick on and create a scene for yourself. So Color Forms was a big toy back in the day. For him to mention Color Forms, which really been prominent back in the 90s, it's more of a throwback to the 60s and the 70s. So if anybody wants to go out there and Google what color forms was, you'll get to see what we're talking about. But I thought that was really a very. What's that? They're still around.
The first thing that comes up when I look it up is Bluey color forms. That new cartoon Bluey.
Kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to.
There's A-Team one though. We should get you the A-Team one.
A-Team. Yeah, well, I did in the day when I was a little kid. I still love color forms, man.
That is awesome.
I was always creative, Marsh. But I love that. I love listening back to that and hearing Tony's voice and just the back and forth, because I used to love going back and forth with him.
How long did he stay in the wrestling business? Because I feel like that by the time we wrapped up the show a few years later, I don't remember hearing much of him being around.
No. He, I don't know the complete story. He was in it, predominantly in the 90s. And I don't even know what year he passed, but he passed at a really young age.
Oh.
And he was a Boston guy. He died in 1999.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Yeah.
Great
from the Boston area, and with that thick Boston accent, and was just really creative, a really good mind.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's the first one who took the wrestling into Our Lady of Guadalupe, which becomes a lot more consistent as the shows go on. You promote more and more shows happening over there.
Yeah, Tommy D was promoting. Mitch Seinfeld was promoting in Our Lady of Guadalupe. So it was a place that the indies used.
Yeah,
and
they took to it. Which I also think is notable, because a lot of venues will not bring it back if it did not, go well for them. One of our local wrestling situations out here was at a VFW and eventually got kicked out because they just didn't think it was making them that much money, and it was cleanup that they didn't want, and they just said, we just don't want it here anymore. And it doesn't take much for any venue to do that. So the fact that this one went in, and then for the next several years we constantly hear about indie shows being in there, pretty cool. It's notable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Who was Vinnie Lafranco? He was in studio with you, it sounded like.
Yeah, Vinnie from West Babylon.
Yeah,
was his first name. I mean, because he was a caller in the early days of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Vinnie Lafranco would call in every week. Vinnie from West Babylon. Hey, John, it's Vinnie with that New York accent. Invited him down. He started helping out with the show. Eventually, really became a producer for the show, helping out. He helped out at my conventions, and I'm still friends with him to this day. Saw him a couple years ago, did a little reunion around Christmas time. What a wonderful guy, and his wife Andrea. They actually met at a Pro Wrestling Spotlight event. He met his wife at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight event at a sports bar in Syosset. I think that was day. It was Cactus Jack, or it was Woman and John Tolis. And we're going to bring Vinny on. Once we do the rewind, I'm going to invite Vinny to come on. And but to this day, I mean, we're still friends on social media with him and Andrea. They travel. He's retired. They travel around the world. They have a wonderful life. But he was so instrumental. And he was also dear friends with Ski, who we all were. Ski was a beloved character in those days of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And we used to have video parties watching pay-per-views by Vinny's house. And Richard Nieves, who was a photographer at the time, and James and Jim from Lindenhurst. We had a nice little good TJ from Deer Park, Thomas Brown, who is still friends with us. And so there was a nice little clique of people that still are in touch with each other.
That is awesome. And he eventually goes on to call in with results quite frequently, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah. Vinny was very active with the show.
Yeah.
And it was
his results were always good. So he went to shows with a pen and paper.
He was very, very knowledgeable wrestling fan, very into it, just a super fan in so many ways. And he was one of those guys that I would look forward to hearing from every week when he was a caller. because he always had great questions and he always had good analytics.
Man, so that would be one of the names you would fake if you wanted to get a good song on there.
Yeah. But I look forward. Hopefully, the technology and he's got a good computer or whatever will reach out, and because these are going to be, it'll be fun when we rewind and we bring these guys. And ironically, I heard from one of the Power Twins yesterday, David, when I was posting about my baseball podcast launches, and we had a long conversation yesterday. And I was like, I wish you guys would just get your shit together. So we could bring you on the show. And I was like, how old is your computer? It's about 15, 20 years old. I said, well, there's your freaking problem. There's problem number one. Wi-Fi is number two. And he goes, I got to see if my brother, will do it. And it's like, well, even if not, even if you just do it. Yeah. Because he was the bigger of the two in regard to the insults. Larry was always a little bit more subdued than David. So if we can just get one of them when we start rewind. Yeah. It'll be fun, but I told him, I said, can't bring you on unless you do it the right way. We can't go through that. Yeah. But it doesn't he doesn't give a shit anyway.
Were you guys talking about baseball for a while?
Yeah, he actually had he called me because he's got some friends out there in Vegas that wanting to do a baseball podcast. And I was like, have them call me and, whatever guidance I can give them, I'll give them. It's not like I'm like the total, expert on baseball. Well, I guess I am now.
I mean, that's your thing now.
That's where I make my living now.
Yeah. Like I've only got like a half a dozen baseball podcast. Why would you think about me? Yeah. Who's Curly Mo? You were not fond of Curly Mo?
What a horrific independent wrestler. His gimmick was Curly from the Three Stooges. And he'd like slap his forehead and do the woo 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 sounds, and he'd like run in place and not get anywhere in the ring, and he'd slap his face and his top of his bald head, and he had a big belly, and it was a horrible worker, and it was just a stupid gimmick, and I wasn't really happy even talking about the dude. I thought it was just fucking ridiculous. Curly Mo.
I found a Curly Mo interview.
You found one? No.
Yeah.
No, you did not.
Yeah, I did. It's
on IWCCW.
I don't know where it's from, but I just pull one up. It's 2.5 minutes. You want to watch? Want to see what he's like?
Yeah, put it in there. Let's hear. Let's entertain everybody.
Yeah, because as soon as I looked up pictures of him, I just couldn't stop laughing already. Because the dude, he's huge. He's huge. He's got the hat.
Horrible.
Curly Mo is obviously. Mo. So I think he was trying to be two of the Three Stooges, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, he was doing Curly and Mo, so he's as big as both of them.
Hello, wrestling fans. For Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, this is senior editor Bill Apter. Curly Mo. Oh, Curly, you're late. I've been waiting for you here with the cameras over here. What? First of all, why were you late?
Well, I had trouble finding the port.
You had trouble finding the port? You mean you came here by boat?
No, by bus. Port Authority.
Oh, the Port Authority bus terminal. Oh, okay. Now, first of all, a lot of fans have written in questions for you. One of them wanted to know, what is your favorite entree?
Entree the Giant.
Entree the Giant? No. I'm talking about food. What do you like to eat?
Oh, if it don't move, Curly will eat it.
Don't move, Curly will eat it. Now,
look, I got a do-rag.
Yeah, but a what?
Do-rag. See, look, do it like that.
No, Curly, I'm supposed to be interviewing.
Tony Atlas.
No,
look at that.
That's a gorilla.
Yeah, but he's cuter. Look.
What have you got in here? What?
I got my own nurse.
Nurse Vanessa be upset by that?
Don't worry about Nurse Vanessa. This is nice.
What do you do with this doll?
Nice. Curlette. Get it? Curlette.
You play with these dolls?
Oh, what's that? I don't know this guy's name. Wait a second. Look.
Trying to ask questions. Maybe we can get one. No. Yeah. Curly, I'm supposed to be interviewing you. Who is this? What is this?
I thought I'd lost him.
Oh, no.
Definitely excited for the match.
After.
We've been through this thing later.
No, say, not later. It's not after.
Anyway,
After.
I just like to take two minutes out. I'd like to say hi to all the little peoples. The fans, the little guys.
You love them,
I
don't you?
like the little peoples. Okay, so hello to all the little peoples. And I want to tell them, make sure they listen to the big peoples, mom and dad. Right. And not to forget, don't forget to watch Coily wrestling, because Coily's back. It's 1992.
The 1992 tour of Curly Mo will be happening soon. Watch for it in your neighborhood. For Pro Wrestling Illustrated, this is senior editor Bill Apter. You're going to the Port Authority with Curly Mo. See you at the Port Authority, I guess. Bye, Curly.
Holy shit.
God bless Bill Apter.
God bless Bill. Can you imagine like what Bill was thinking when they hired him? You know, like we have you do a promo with this guy Curly Mo.
What is he promoting? Nothing.
He looked I mean, he looks like he's like, you know, like, he looks like he's about to drop dead. First of all, this guy,
He's about to have a heart attack.
oh my God. And so you see what I mean? You know, you just brought back some horrific nightmare memories.
There is very little redeeming out of that entire 2-minute interview. And even Bill Apter at the end of it was all like, I guess look for the Curly Mo tour coming somewhere. Like
The Port Authority in New York. There you go. Yeah. Curly Mo. Yeah, he not good. Entertaining to watch 32 years later, but
not in the way I think you would want it to be entertaining.
No, it was kind of gross and disgusting in a way.
I can see why you didn't think he had a big future ahead of him.
No.
When you did get him out of the business. Like, although you also said to get out of the business, The Undertakers and Tasmaniac, one of which actually went on to become one of your favorite wrestlers. But after he changed away from the crazy gimmick, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it wasn't. I think what I was referring to was get the Undertakers and Tasmaniac to get Curly Mo out of the business.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah,
that could be.
No, because I was always a fan of Pete Tasmaniac, or Kid Crush is when I worked managing Sonny Blaze against him, and the one thing I remember him from those early days is like he would not do a job, even when he was starting out. He would not do a job.
That is awesome. Put me up against somebody in Newark, so I'm not taking that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen pictures of the old Tasmaniac and the face paint and the crazy hair and stuff, and it was goofy, and it was good that he got away from it, but it was also really cool that he still maintained Taz. Like, you'd think that a lot of them who have these weird gimmicks, when they go away, they break away from it as much as they can.
Yeah, and Taz had kind of what the kids call today broccoli hair.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first. I don't know. I didn't ever even hear, because I see like all the kids today have this bush on top of their head, right? And they call it broccoli hair.
Ah, well, I don't talk to kids enough to know that.
I've seen it on TV. Just a reference on TV. So that's what they call that.
Yeah.
And Taz was an early adapter.
Early on. Dude's been just inspiring generation after generation.
Yes.
Let's see. Moving along, we got Wade Keller on to talk about a few things. Right before you have Wade Keller on, though, you mentioned something that I want to talk about on the other side.
Okay.
Hi, this is Kerry Von Erich, and you're listening to John Anthony's Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Yes, thank you, Kerry Von Erich, Texas Tornado, as he's referred to in the WWF. We get a lot of, speaking of Texas, we get a lot of bulletins that come across the desk here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight each and every week. We just received a new issue of the Texas Roundup. It is the only newsletter or bulletin that is actually written and published by an active pro wrestler. This bulletin comes out twice a month, and it's written by, like I said, a pro wrestler who remains anonymous. and has a lot of strong comments in it about what's happening down in Texas. A lot of real inside information. If you're interested in getting a copy of the Texas Roundup, you can get 4 issues for $5 and send it right to Texas Roundup, Post Office Box 75054-0262. And once again, that's Texas Roundup, Post Office Box 75054-0262, Grand Prairie, Texas 75054. The only active newsletter that's actually written and published by an active pro wrestler. We're waiting to get on the line with Wade Keller right now. Other things that are taking place, we mentioned earlier that WCW, NWA is going to be at the Meadowlands now. 8 shows signed for the remainder of this year. And also the fact that the WWF is now not going to be running any shows there. So sounds like there's more to it than meets the eye. Maybe we can WF, that's the way they're promoting this big feud. And I always had a lot of respect for Hulk Hogan, and I really feel, as a lot of people do, that he does have the power. He's probably the second most powerful man in wrestling, or even neck and neck with Vince. He could have did something about this to tone it down a little bit, but there he is talking about Scud missiles and Saddam Hussein and everything else yesterday, and it's like, man.
And it sure would have been nice to find out about Hulk Hogan visiting the USO troops from a little newspaper clipping that says the WWF did not publicize Hulk Hogan's tour, but we found out that Hulk did visit the troops, and if it wasn't used for publicity, if it was simply done out of goodwill, and then the story came out without the WWF leaking it, that would have been just fine. But the fact that, they brought cameras there and they sent press releases out 5 days before they aired the footage on NBC, it just showed that they were exploiting it, and it completely, whenever someone does something good and then brags about it, that goodness deteriorates just a little bit in people's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a situation that's hopefully will get toned down a little. At least that's wishful thinking on my part and the part of many others, maybe even including yourself, Wade. But WrestleMania 7 is coming up, and March 24th will be the day. Now, other matches on that card, of course, we have speculated, and we were one of the first to talk about the possibility of Randy Savage retiring.
Right.
I think the last time you were on a program, I said I knew something was up with one of the main stars, and announced it the week after that Randy Savage was contemplating retiring. We've been hearing a lot of other stories, perhaps as this is just a short-term retirement, that he'll be back. Other stories stating that he's going to leave the WWF after WrestleMania, and perhaps permanently. One report even crossed here last week. I believe someone called in and said that they heard down in an independent show down in the Florida area, they heard something about Randy Savage teaming with his brother Lanny Poffo. So all kinds of speculation regarding Savage right now. Let's get your opinion.
This past week, most of the stories I've heard is that Savage is not retiring after all. The previous week, 2 weeks ago, all the stories I heard was that Savage was going to retire. I don't know if 2 weeks ago that was true, and then this last week he's not going to retire, and they're going to come up with some way for Savage to lose, and then have Ultimate Warrior beg for Savage not to be suspended so he can get revenge, which has been done in wrestling for years.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to suspect that Savage will be around for a while longer after WrestleMania, maybe another year or something like that. Or if he does lose a retirement match, it'll only be 6 months later he'll be back.
It'll be a temporary situation.
Yeah, I tend to believe that now.
And it's like we were talking about. This is like they're using the USO, they're using the war. This is
exploitation. Yeah. To the best of their ability.
The Texas Roundup newsletter, written by an active wrestler in Texas.
Yes.
Did you know who it was?
Oh, of course. I'm not going to tell you, though. No. It was Larry Dwyer. It was a dear friend to this day. Larry worked for World Class Championship Wrestling back in the day, and so he published his own little newsletter that was actually, he was an active pro wrestler at the time for World Class Championship Wrestling.
How big did he ever get? Was there
Just marginal. Worked a lot over the course of those years. I mean, he did a lot of work in a lot of different territories, including jobbing for WWF. So he was around for quite a bit. He was a New York City guy. He was part of the ring crew for WWF. He worked with Gorilla Monsoon used to control the ring crew with a guy named Pinky Larson back then, and he was friends with a lot of the guys. He was around. He was a dear friend. He went to the wrestling conventions. He was a good friend of Donnie Libels and myself. He was a photographer. He did some photography work. Did some work with Tommy D. Did some work for Napolitano's magazines. Close with the Grand Wizard and S.D. Jones, Davey O'Hannon, Johnny Rods, all those guys. And he was broken in. He broke into the business through Skandar Akbar. He was prominent, and we still keep in touch. He calls me like once or twice a year just to kind of say hello. Just like no time has passed in the 40 years, the 30 plus years, 50 years is, I think I've known him almost 50 years. But out of the blue, he'll just say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's always good to hear him.
That's awesome. I'm trying to think. His name is so familiar. I'm wondering, I was trying to see if I could pull up my digital version. It's not on my iPad anymore, I don't think. I wonder if he's in Jimmy Corderas' book, because Corderas, he started out ring crew brought in by Monsoon as well, because like he was talking about how he wanted to do it, and it was one of those like he was doing the merch and then over, but it sounds like same time period, same places, like so. I wouldn't be surprised.
Frequent member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, goes to a lot of those deals. He did some some really cool TV jobs too. I mean, one against Pedro Morales.
Yeah,
back then. Yeah.
Did Sonny Blaze teach him that?
I don't think so.
Oh, actually, pulling up a picture. Was he there that year we went?
He was.
Yeah, because he looks really familiar. But yeah, that's pretty cool. That's neat. I just also thought it was funny that you were putting that over right after the intro from Kerry Von Erich. Wait a second.
Yeah.
That placement seems specific.
It was a little coincidental, but he was calling me John Anthony. I was back to John Arezzi at this time.
Yeah. Well, there's another one too. In one of the clips I left, there's a woman, so we'll hear it. And I think she calls you John Arezzi Anthony. Or John Anthony Arezzi.
Yeah, that's so confusing. Isn't that really crazy? Because I'm still confused to this day.
Yeah.
About my own name.
Someone's like, "What's your name?" Like,
I don't know what to sign an email anymore, because the baseball stuff, I'm John Arezzi. There's wrestling stuff, and then I get reached out to with some friends in the music business, and I'm John Alexander for them. I'm like, I'm in a hole too deep I can't get out of with two different identities.
Yeah, you got to lean into it. Like
what a unique existence. And then wrestling under John Anthony, and it's like, it's really bizarre if you look at it.
Oh yeah, it is. It's awesome.
It's like I don't even know what people think about me. Like I don't even know. Like I'm serious. It's like I'm sending an email to like a Terry Collins or one of my baseball, and it's like, because my company, I have a company that is Alexander in the name. I don't know what to do, Marsh.
That's why I just tack them together. I'm Marsh now. It makes it easy. You just got to go buy Arezzi and be done with it.
Oh my God. Or Alexander Arezzi. What's your name? My name is Alexander Arezzi. I used to be called John Arezzi, but now I'm just Alexander Arezzi.
I'm Alexander Arezzi Anthony.
Psychopath.
Yeah.
Don't know who I am.
Wow.
It's all right. I know who I am, but I just don't know what to call myself. You decide.
I like the idea of someone trying to introduce themselves to you, and you just kind of go, "Can we not go down this rabbit hole right now?"
Yeah, I'm John. Johnny A. Just John A.
Johnny A. Johnny Triple A.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Johnny A. I have that's the other thing on Twitter, like on X and even Instagram. I have 2 accounts. I'm like at John Arezzi and I'm at Johnny A125.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to follow you back at Johnny A because that's my other life.
Yeah.
I'll follow you back as Arezzi, but not as Johnny A125.
That's perfect. That's fine.
Help me. Let's go, man.
Let's go, Matt. You talked earlier about having a little kid interviewer.
Oh, yeah.
During this month, though, you do get Andrew Goldberger in studio.
Ah, Andrew.
Yeah.
What a story with that kid. I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know about him?
Yeah, and he like befriended Foley and stuff, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
and went on to do a couple of seemingly notable things that may have been slightly successful.
Well, no, I'll let you know how
I know.
successful he was, but are we going to play the clip first before I go into a deep dive on Andrew?
Yeah, let's play the clip, let people know, get a little taste of Goldberger, and then we'll talk a little bit about how he did okay for himself.
He did.
And incidentally, we've just been joined here live in the studio by perhaps the youngest newsletter editor in the business today, Mr. Andrew Goldberger from outside the ring, inside the ropes.
Around the ring.
Around the ring,
Thanks
okay.
for having me here, John.
No problem. Don from Oceanside, you're next.
Good morning, John Wayne. John, I asked you this question last
John Wayne?
What?
I thought you said, good morning, John Wayne.
Wade. W-A-D-E.
I'm sorry?
I only did Wayne for the Honky Tonk Man.
Uh-huh.
Last week I asked you this question. I want to know if any of you know the answer about the main event, about the card for the WWF Japan show.
I heard that it was going to be Hulk Hogan teaming up with Genritsu Tenryu versus the Legion of Doom in the main event.
That's Andrew Goldberger, but speaking about that main event, Wade, do you know any other matches for that?
But they are actually there. I don't know any other matches, and I don't think the fans who don't follow Japanese wrestling would recognize any other matches because
we've been trying to find out that card, and
they're riding the whole card on that one main event.
Yeah,
well, they might get away with it.
I think the WCW show that's coming up in March is a lot stronger. Of course, that's going to be on a pay-per-view show. It's going to be a $9.95 pay-per-view special.
That's a surprise. They're going to replay the March 23rd show on April 7th on pay-per-view.
And that's going to be like $9. And then from what I understand, for their pay-per-view for May, Capital Combat, they're bringing in a lot of these stars from Japan. Are going to have pretty much a Japanese versus WCW pay-per-view, which is going to be...
In fact, I think there's talk that there's going to be a rematch between Ric Flair and Tatsumi Fujinami, which might lead to speculate it'll be Flair trying to regain the title if he loses it in Japan.
That could be the magic number 8 that he's been looking for.
That's right.
Well, do either of you know the entire card for the Japan NWA show?
Yeah, matter of fact, we do have that. I have it here somewhere, and I'm going to search it out, and we'll get to that. Definitely, we'll search it out, and we'll deliver it to you before the... well, matter of fact, here it is. Let's check it out right now.
Okay.
Just bear with me for 1 second here. Trying to go through. We'll give it to you. We'll give it to you before the show's out for sure.
Yeah, all right. Well, if it's all right with you, just try to get to it as soon as possible. So I can
okay. We'll do whatever we can for you, okay?
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you. Okay, 955-1240. Number to call here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and we're going to seek out the answer to that question. Let's get on the phone with Scalise from Queens. Scalise, you're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How you doing?
How you doing today?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering what Wade thinks about this Elegante Ric Flair situation.
I think that WCW was forced into this situation because they've invested so much money into El Gigante that they decided that it's about time we do something with him and try to put him in a position of making them a little bit of money.
What has this big idiot done to get a title shot?
He's big.
He's beat El Cubano about 23 times.
That's the thing is it's definitely, having a wrestler come out and say I want the belt has never worked in the history of wrestling, and
that's the only thing else I have to say.
I don't think I think the matches are intriguing because I think one, it's going to be a challenge for Ric Flair to be at all entertaining with a guy who has trouble applying a chokehold with any skill.
Yeah.
Obviously El Gigante is not a title threat at this point.
Nope.
I thought it was really bad how they made him choke down Ric Flair. They showed that footage last night.
Yeah.
On WCW. I just thought that was in bad taste.
Yeah.
Well, especially choking the Nature Boy out in El Gigante.
And then having Ric Flair yesterday having commentary during the El Gigante match saying how much respect he had for El Gigante's strength. Well, if you choke someone, that's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. All right, listen, Scalise, thanks for your call here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Joe from Howard Beach, first-time caller.
Hello.
Hey, Joe, how you doing? What can we do for you?
Well, I just like two things. Number one, I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid. Bruno Sammartino was always my idol. I
Mine
remember
too.
when he lost to Billy Graham, I couldn't sleep all night. But just one thing, his son. You got such great wrestlers, but I feel your matches are a little dull for the New York area.
Oh, who are you referring to?
Anybody. Like you had Paul Orndorff. I watch it on Sports Channel all the time.
You're referring to UWF?
Right.
Okay.
And I feel like you got the right idea, but the matches just are a little dull. That's my opinion.
That's something you got to discuss with Herb Abrams since I'm no longer affiliated with UWF.
Another thing, like you were saying, it's done in bad taste with Iraq and Hulk Hogan, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But on your organization, you've got.
It's not your.
Sir?
Yes.
I'm not affiliated with the UWF.
Oh, but with the UWF, they have that thing with apartheid. So I think that's done in bad taste also.
Yeah, I think it is too. I totally agree with you.
Right, but the thing with Hulk Hogan, I don't know. I just I've been watching wrestling so long, so like I'm used to it. A new fan maybe would be offended.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're watching wrestling for 30, 40 years like I do, it's just part of the act.
Well, that's why wrestling, as far as popularity, Wade, and I think you'll have to agree with me, has dwindled a great deal over the last few years.
Yeah, I know of a lot of people who just recently have been turned off to wrestling because of what's been going on. People who are involved in the politics of the war and have opinions on the war, who are also casual wrestling fans,
mm-hmm.
have turned on the WWF, seen what they're doing, and complained to me. And there's not much I can do about it, but they've pretty much stopped going to not just the WWF, but all wrestling. And that's one thing that even Jim Cornette in the National had stated. He feared would happen is people would group him with Vince McMahon, and he'd never wanted that to happen.
Well, the popularity of wrestling right now, it's at a low point, and I understand even the ratings for the main event show are lower than any show that appeared on NBC television.
Yep.
For the WWF.
Fans weren't happy. That guy was not happy. Andrew was trying to correct him. We had El Gigante in there. I want the belt. You had Ric Flair on the commentary desk. And it was kind of embarrassing back then. And if you watched AEW wrestling this week, it was kind of embarrassing to see him in the ring with the Young Bucks. But of course, you had Wade giving his opinions, and you had Andrew sitting there like he was this ultimate expert and really a co-host of the show.
Yeah.
Volunteering his answers and chiming in.
And this was after you had Vinnie in. Do you think Vinnie would have left partway through, or do you think he would just slid aside?
Vinnie was probably in the control room, I would guess.
Yeah. I wonder if he was fielding calls for you.
He probably was. He probably was screening the calls. Yeah. But Andrew was an interesting case. I mean, Andrew was this young kid who was a very nerdy, awkward guy. And he became a caller, and I used to love talking to him because of the way he had to pick the show up, because it was especially in the NYG era, and he would have to go and put an antenna out and tilt his head to the side. He mentioned all these things to try to get the show in clearer, and then he started a newsletter, and he was just Cactus. Mick Foley and I took him to lunch, befriended him a little bit, brought him into the studio. He started a newsletter. Herb Abrams sued him. He was 14 years old because he reported that Herb had bounced some checks on wrestlers. So Herb sued him, sued a 14-year-old kid. And he didn't get anywhere with it because, Andrew's dad took it over and brought it to an attorney, and that was the end of that. And Andrew was a horny little young guy too. He used to. So he said he saw his first set of actual boobs at my Weekend of Champions, where there was a valet that actually worked with Tony Rumble, and she worked at in Jersey at a club that became famous as the Bada Bing as a stripper. And she was an independent wrestler. She was married to a guy who eventually became Big Dick Dudley. And so anyway, Electra was her name, and she flashed Andrew her boobs once. at the convention. But what it did for him, he said he was a shy, awkward kid. And because of me and because I befriended him, I gave him confidence in himself. And because of the experiences that he had as part of a small part of Pro Wrestling Spotlight and a friendship. And he was a very smart kid, like almost like genius smart. And he was also the guy that introduced me to Vince Russo.
Oh, yeah.
He was walking home from school. And he saw a video store where there was like wrestling in the window, and his Will to Throw video owned by Vince Russo, and went in there. And then all of a sudden, he had a conversation with Russo, and he hooked us up. So he's the guy.
Sponsor, right? To be a sponsor.
Yeah, to be a sponsor. So he's the one. And I never forget. And he also ran Jimmy Cornette's fan club for a while.
Oh.
So when I was working with Brian Lass, and Brian brought me on the Experience with Jim. And we told that story, and I, because how much Cornette hates who he calls shit stain Russo. And when Jim learned that his fan club president is actually the guy to introduce me to Vince Russo, Jim almost had a stroke. And that's up there on YouTube. You could find it. It's one of the most hilarious things. But Andrew
Cornette was like, I thought I could wipe my history clean, and I had nothing to do with it, but I may have actually had something to do with it.
Right, but it was like the ironic part of it. It was like the person who actually brought Vince Russo into the wrestling business through me was the introduction that Andrew Goldberger, who was running Cornette's fan club at the time.
Yeah,
and that almost set Jim off in a way that he has spiraled that he could never get back from, and never forget that it was actually his fan club president that introduced Vince Russo into the wrestling world.
You had probably a double Sprite that night.
Yeah. And then Andrew went on and became very successful. He's a multimillionaire now. He developed some apps that actually were ways for churches to donate money through an app. So he sold it off for millions of dollars. And he lives. He has a place in Manhattan, and he also is quite the bachelor. And he's in Belize, in Spain. So I got together with him a few years ago, and just a tremendous active guy. Just like Cactus Jack. It was like he did quite well for himself, and he found me on Instagram, and he had been looking for me. He said for almost 30 years. To just kind of thank me for giving him and believing in him and like paying attention to him.
Yeah.
Which helped him in his life's journey.
You were an interesting cat back then. You either were completely dismissive of idiot kids, or you really saw something in somebody and you took to them.
Yeah. And Andrew was one of those guys. He used to make me laugh. He was so eccentric, even as a teenager. But there was something about him that this kid is freaking smart. He's gonna go places.
He was 14 when he started his newsletter, right?
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started the fan club for Blassie?
I was 14.
14. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there was just a little spark of like similarities there. How long did he have the news? Did he have the newsletter or the Cornette Club first?
It was Corn. I believe it was Corn. No, it was Cornette. When did I meet Russo? I met Russo in the middle to end of '91. So I think it was the newsletter first, then the Cornette thing.
Huh. That's pretty cool. You guys were talking in there pretty adamantly. You were no longer affiliated with UWF. What was your affiliation with them?
With Herb Abrams?
Yeah.
Well, he launched the UWF at my first wrestling convention.
Yeah.
I met him through Georgianne Macropolis. And then I started helping him. I set up his first run in New York. We were kind of the exclusive ticket outlet for him when he shot the Penta Hotel. Herb kind of dominated Pro Wrestling Spotlight for a while, and he'd bring all the guys on. And Herb is a character, and I worked my ass off to try to help him launch in New York.
Did he ever make you an official title or anything like that, or were you just a guy who was helping him as far as?
No, I was helping. I was supposed, getting paid. Well, I think one of the checks cleared, but the rest of them didn't. It was just it was an interesting relationship with Herb Abrams, and a fascinating guy, as we all know, and we'll certainly be covering as we rewind back to that era. But after that first weekend of promoting in New York, I was hoping that I would eventually land as someone on the announcers team, because he had Bruno Sammartino, and he had Craig DeGeorge, who worked for WWF at the time. But I was hoping that I'd get an announcer slot, but that never happened. And Herb wound up doing play-by-play and analysis himself, as everything else. Yeah, let's hear it for the Jews. One of the most fascinating characters in the history of the business. But yeah, I got introduced to Herb in 1990, the wrestling convention. He set it up there, the infamous press conference where he said, Blackjack Mulligan was going to be his booker, and Blackjack was in jail at the time, and it was everybody knows Herb Abrams was listening to this show.
And there was something too. Wasn't he saying somebody was going to be on the show, but that person had been dead for like a year?
It was Bruiser Brody.
That's what it was. Yeah. Bruiser Brody was going to be there, and everyone's like, "He will not make it."
Character,
an early indicator.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go see his life, go to one of the archives and go to Dark Side of the Ring. There's a whole episode on him, cocaine and cowboy boots, and the man infamously died naked, chasing hookers around with a baseball bat and covered in Vaseline and cocaine.
The dream.
What a way to go.
The dream.
And his dog was named Cokie.
Was it a white dog at least?
It was.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And when he died, the Sunny Beach got the dog, along with the midgets title of the UWF and a few other titles. So Sunny Beach really helped him out a lot.
Sunny Beach ended up with the midget title?
Yeah, he still has it.
Oh. For a second, I was twisting up his mini title with yours, because I was like, how did Skolder get it? But Skolder's got your old mini title. Well, I mean, he definitely played a part in that. So,
yeah.
Quick question: you had an official limo company, the Midnight Express limo?
Yes, Pete.
Yeah,
Pete the Greek guy. So the limo company, he would help transport. He became Herb's limo guy.
Yeah,
and Herb used to promote his limo company, Midnight Express, on Herb's television show. Pete had this very heavy, thick accent, had this thick Greek mustache, and I met him. I forgot how I met him, but we developed a friendship, and I'll never forget. Even when I was arrested for scalping tickets at SummerSlam 1990, when I had to go to court, Pete took me with his limo for my court appearance.
It's official.
Johnny, this Herb didn't pay me. The check bounced. So I don't know what to tell you. But that John told us a good guy. The Golden Greek.
That's awesome. So good. But yeah, I just thought it was funny the way you were putting it over to the official limo company, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and I was like, oh, it's official, because of the unofficial ones we don't talk about.
Hey, so you're having fun listening to some of these even older tapes, aren't you?
Oh yeah, no, these were good. It was a long trek, because it was just I was trying to listen to them all at once, and I probably should in the future split it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was.
You see how the scandals ruined the show?
It definitely changed the tone.
I mean, we used to have fun. These were like the golden era. This was the golden era for Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Yeah,
it really was. And then all the shit got too serious, and the scandals and all that crap, and the stress, and meeting Russo era. And all that other shit. Give me 1989 and 90 and early 91. To me, that's the golden era of the show. Even though it wasn't as serious, we still covered the inside, but there was none of this other shit that was going down.
I always liked your ability to balance kayfabe and not. Like, when you wanted to have fun, it was easy for you to flip that on. And when you wanted to say, hey, there's actually stuff that's happening that should be addressed, you knew when to do that. And then there was a time where it's just you didn't have the option to do both. So, Let's see. Oh, Excalibur Promotions.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what that is?
Was it a video marketer?
I don't think it was a video marketer, but I thought it might have been you, because I think it was something
No.
was getting put on, and the way you were talking about Excalibur Promotions being involved was unsure.
I don't know. I don't remember.
It's all right. I got some callers here.
Yeah.
This one is Drew from Babylon. He called in both weeks, and I put them both together. So it's a little bit of a shorter clip because he has short calls, but I like this kid.
Entertaining.
Yeah.
Without further ado, let's get on the phones right now with some of the listeners. We got a full bank of calls right now. Let's take our first caller from Babylon, Drew from Babylon. Drew, you're on the air with Wade Keller.
Hi.
Lower your radio, please.
All right.
Okay, so we'll give him a couple of seconds to do that, and here, come back.
Wade.
Okay, Drew. Okay.
Wait, I have some speculations. All right. Here's my speculations for Wrestle War 91 in the NWA. First of all, Lex Luger is going to lose the U.S. belt to Dan Spivey, and then whoever wins tonight, Dallas Diamond Page's team or Doom's team, Lex Luger and Sting are going to beat them for the tag team titles in the next Clash of Champions.
Is your last name Rhodes, Drew?
No.
I think that's very plausible. I think that's a very plausible situation.
Yeah, and I have one question. Who is the team that Dallas Diamond Page is going to be bringing out tonight?
Freebirds.
Yep.
Freebirds?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, not a big surprise, but maybe he'll add some life to the team that's been kind of on a treadmill the last few months.
Well, thanks for your call, Drew, and thanks for your speculations.
Call in. You can call me by Drew Rhodes.
Okay, Drew Rhodes, how you doing?
Good. I have some more predictions. This time, it's with the Intercontinental title. First of all, at WrestleMania 7, Big Boss Man beats Mr. Perfect.
Wrong.
Sorry, Drew.
No, here's what I think.
Okay.
Or either way. But then, after DiBiase loses or wins, or either way, if Mr. Perfect still has the belt, he's going to turn good, and Akeem is going to start managing him. DiBiase is going to win the belt, but they're going to see Akeem help DiBiase win the belt by clobbering Perfect over the head with it, and then they have a battle royal to see who wins it.
Drew.
Yeah.
Drew. You know something? What you should do?
Yeah.
You should start a newsletter. Drew Rhodes Predicts, and we'll give you a plug here at the show each and every week for Drew Rhodes Predicts. And the kid sounds like he should be answering that ad that's in the New York Times today for assistant booker matchmaker for Titan Sports.
Yeah, I was kind of under the impression that it was going to be DiBiase Piper, not too far down the pike.
Well, Drew, your predictions, hopefully they'll be all correct, and you might be a wrestling promoter someday. Keep up the good work and keep that mind and an imagination going.
That was great.
Yeah, Drew Rhodes. I like it. I can't believe that I missed the clip on there, because when he calls back the next one, he's like, "Last week you called me Rhodes, so from here on out, call me Drew Rhodes."
Right. Yeah. It was actually Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. It turns out that was Cody the whole time.
That was Cody Rhodes.
Do you remember that kid much after this? Like, did you ever meet him or anything?
No, I don't remember meeting him. No. And I hope I didn't, scare him off with the second call, but he might have called back a few times. I guess we'll find out as we rewind later on. But that was very entertaining, and that was cool. That's why even a lot of times I used to get very annoyed with kids when they called up, but this kid had something special. He was imagining, he was fantasy booking in his mind and speculating, and he was entertaining, and he wasn't obnoxious either. He was just kind of innocent kid, trying to be creative, and that was cool. That was great to reminisce.
I liked it because you can hear him in the first one. I have some speculations. You fed him so well that when he calls back the next week, he's all like, "I've got some booking ideas."
Oh,
and
yeah.
So
he thought he was going to become a regular.
Yeah. But he also, his mind was starting to shift a little bit, where he went from, "I wonder if this is going to happen," to, "This is how I would do it."
Yeah, Booker.
Yeah. And that mind shift is notable for such a young age. This is what I would do. It's really cool.
You could call me Drew Rhodes from now on.
Yeah. Yeah. He wanted his moniker. Yeah.
That's
It's
great.
This next little batch of calls is my favorite and your favorite to bookend it with a classic prank in the middle.
Okay, Joey from Babylon, you're next.
How you doing, John?
Okay, Joey.
Wade, how are you?
Good.
I have a question. Any idea if Mike Rotunda is coming to the World Wrestling Federation?
He's going to Japan right now, right? Wait.
Yeah. I've not heard that he's going to the WWF, and I don't suspect he will. I think for the next year or two, Mike Rotunda's going to be very satisfied in Japan. I know he's sought after there.
Money's good over there also.
It definitely is.
Another question, I'm surprised nobody else asked it. How come Sting doesn't use the Scorpion Deathlock anymore? Has that been outlawed?
He's probably having too many nightmares from the Black Scorpion days. From that,
but I just wondered. I mean, that's a premier move, and I really believe that the submission hold is like part of the marketing process. And I wonder why he doesn't use it.
I did agree with that. I hadn't thought about that till you brought it up. I think it's mainly having to do with him wanting to use the Stinger Splash as a finisher, simply because it's a high-impact move as opposed to a submission hold.
Well, he's afraid if he puts the Scorpion Deathlock on any of his opponents, then Ole Anderson will come back. Thanks for your call, Joey. Let's take a first-time caller from Freeport, Mike.
John, this is the Black Scorpion.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I told you I would be taking your show,
and
now I've kidnapped one of your listeners. Yes, I now have in my clutches George from Lindenhurst.
Oh, no.
And to prove that I have him, I will put him on for a moment.
No, thanks. We don't want to get involved in any kidnapping scenarios with any of our listeners. And we'll go back on the lines. George from Lindenhurst.
Hi, John. This is George from Lindenhurst.
I guess you weren't kidnapped after all, George.
Nope. Tell the Black Scorpion I know pro wrestling, and if he starts with me, I'll kill him.
Okay. Is that it?
What?
Any other questions or comments?
Oh yeah. Do you know anything that's gonna happen? Any matches that's gonna happen in WrestleMania 7?
Yeah, we got several. I think we got about half a dozen lined up. We'll give them to you right now. Of course, the main event is Hogan versus Slaughter. Then we have Macho Man taking on Ultimate Warrior in the retirement match. Tag team titles, Nasty Boys taking on Hart Foundation. Jake the Snake Roberts will meet Rick Martel in the blindfold match, which is an interesting concept. The Big Boss Man will take on Kurt Hennig, and that will be for the Intercontinental title. Also, Virgil will meet Ted DiBiase, and that match will have Rowdy Roddy Piper in Virgil's corner. So those are the matches that we know of right now. I'm sure there'll be at least another half a dozen added to that for WrestleMania, which takes place March 24th. Let's try to get through these calls. People have been holding for a while. Leon.
Wow.
How you doing, Johnny?
Hey. Those are Pro Wrestling Spotlight Hall of Fame callers.
Yeah, those are Hall of Famers for sure.
It's good to hear George's voice after so many months have passed.
Yeah.
Was that your first experience with George from Lindenhurst?
I think right when I came on, he was on one or two of them. Yeah, one or two. And that was that was it. And I wonder why he stopped calling in at a certain point. I don't
know.
I wonder if he just kind of like grew out of it for the period of time, or if he maybe you went dark for a couple months and he just never really checked back.
Yeah, that could have happened. I mean, just the way the show was moving stations, and it was inconsistent. So I'm sure I lost a lot of them when they just didn't bother to find where we went to at WEVD, and but who knows? But it was great while it lasted with George.
Yeah.
And the ironic part is we're friends on Facebook. He and his brother, and he actually lives here in Tennessee.
We got to get him on one time. Have you gone to lunch with him?
I tried.
Oh yeah, he said no.
A few years ago, because there was like this when I was doing the show with Brian. There was this whole there was a lot of people looking for this guy, George from Lindenhurst, and then somebody actually found him. And I was like, I'm not gonna invade somebody's privacy, or And then I did reach out, and I had heard once, and he said maybe, and then I never heard from him again. But he still remains friends on Facebook, and I'm. The guy he's a 40-year-old guy now.
Yeah. Oh, he's a fun guy though, a fun kid.
Yeah, he was very entertaining, and he was probably, and as we do the rewind, we'll have more of him, of course. But he was one of those callers where people they loved hearing him, and they loved my reaction to him, which initially was just like, oh, I'd sigh when I hear it was George from Lindenhurst. But I grew fond of him, and he became probably the all-time most beloved caller in the history of the show.
Yeah, I like how he's talking so fast. You know what I mean? He's trying to get it all out.
Yes, and he was very quick. And when he was done, he was done. He was in and out always.
Yeah, just as quick as he could be.
One quick
It was
question.
almost like because he kept his radio on and he knew there was a delay. It was almost like he was trying to get it out before it came out so he could hear the response.
Yeah,
He didn't want to overlap. You know what I mean? So that
was great.
Like he wanted to hear your response on the radio and not on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. It was cool. I liked it too. You're all like, so you weren't kidnapped. He's like, no, you tell George. You tell
I'll
Scorpion.
kill him. I'll kill him. There you go.
Which is also awesome too, because he's listening the whole time. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's listening. He's calling. He heard that thing, and he's like, "Hey, that's stupid."
The Black Scorpion.
Yeah,
that's some characters back then. That's some real good characters back then. And Joey, of course, always legend.
Yeah. Joey's so good. I just imagine him as kind of like a little, head down kind of.
I was trying to picture what he'd look like.
Yeah.
Hey, John. Yeah, it's Joey. Yeah. I love those interactions with Cactus Jack and some of the other like the animated conversations that we had over the years.
Dude, the couple times you make him laugh, crack me up because he's got this big burst of a laugh.
Yeah.
But we'll get more to those as we get them.
Get the rewind. Yeah, I mean that's why the rewind is going to be fun.
Yeah,
because this is the stuff I want to focus on. I want to focus on the really fun, the laughable moments, the characters like the Curly Moes and we go into the Mark Tendler stuff again from years ago, and the Twins and Sonny Blaze and even Jack the Giant Stalker down the road. It's going to be crazy to relive this stuff again.
Yeah, Jack the Giant Stalker was really cool to dig into when we got to. I thought this was interesting too. This was February '91, and they were talking about. Someone asked Wade what he thought about Dusty bringing his kid in, the natural Dustin Rhodes, and he goes, "Look, I think that he's really good. He's sound." He was like, "But he needs to take his time." He goes, "If he doesn't book him correctly, people aren't going to take to him." I thought that was cool. That at no point did I ever hear, because we've heard some of these for a while. Like, you guys never like shit on him the way you might have on an Eric Watts. Like Eric Watts wasn't and shouldn't be there.
Right.
Dusty Rhodes' kid, you guys were all trying to protect him as well. How do we best protect him from the stigma that would hurt him because he is so good? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really neat.
He was impressive from day one.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it makes sense why Dusty called him the natural and stuff, but let's see. As we get into the second half of February, you bring in Michael Mansky. Yeah. Do you want
a little backstory on Mike?
Actually, you know what? You introduce him in this clip, so let's hear your way of bringing him on, and then we'll get a little story about him.
All right.
Hi, this is Jim Ross. Don't touch that dial. WBAB's Pro Wrestling Spotlight is on the air.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, heard right here on 1240 AM WBAB. Very big weekend this past weekend, and for the New York wrestling scene, there are a lot of big-time wrestlers in and out of the metropolitan area. Big show yesterday afternoon at the Nassau Coliseum, and also last night in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I believe it was a TV taping for Universal Wrestling Alliance. Some big stars showing up. And, of course, the Universal Wrestling Federation was in town at the Penta Hotel on Friday night for another one of their big TV tapings. We'll get into all of that later on during the program. Today we're going to be joined by a couple of special guests during the show. I'd like to first welcome the president of Worldwide Entertainment Marketing right here, Mike Omansky. And Mike is the person that's putting out some classic wrestling videotapes. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, John. Good to be back.
Well, you haven't been on. The last time you were on basically was during our stint at our other radio station.
That's correct. So this is my first time at BAB.
Yeah, we've since sold that station off and
right.
have now purchased this station.
I'm very familiar with the call letters here because my stint is VP of Marketing at RCA Records. We had a number of things played out here.
Oh, sure. It's a big station for what you folks are doing there. But you're doing some classic stuff right now in the wrestling business. Of course, Mike, you go back a long time.
I followed wrestling about 30 years. I went to my first live show in 1962 in the White Plains County Center. Main event was the Tolos brothers against Ed Carpentier and Argentine Apollo, and it was a terrific three-fall draw.
Wow. Matter of fact, I talked to John Tolos the other night about the new tape that's out, and he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have any of his old matches, nothing.
Oh, he will now. I do.
Yeah. But I'm sure Mr. Tolos would like to hear from you or get a copy of the tape.
We'll get him a copy.
I did tell him about it, and he said, boy, if I could get anything, especially me teaming up with my brother Chris.
He'll get it. As a matter of fact, after we launched the first two wrestling classics, I was in touch with Al Costello through Don Leibel of the Fabulous Kangaroos. And Al just loved the tapes, and we've got some more kangaroo footage on the new ones.
Yeah, it's a classic stuff. I watched the tapes again the other night. The new Volume 3 and 4, of course, Volume 1 and 2 are out.
Right, Volume 3 and 4 are going to hit the stores around March 1st, and very widely available in the New York area.
Okay.
We can get into that.
All right, what we're going to do, and of course, I forgot to mention that after 11 o'clock, we will be joined for a little bit, direct from California. He's called the Wrestling Dentist, Dr. Mike Lano, and Mike was a vice president of my Fred Blassie fan club when I started that back in the early 70s. Mike just ventured over to Japan, and he just got back, and he took a week or two vacation over to Japan and saw all the wrestling promotions there. He's going to fill us in on what happened over in Japan and who he saw and how he compares wrestling in Japan in comparison to wrestling here in the States right now, which is controversial to say the least with the Sergeant Slaughter situation.
That's great to hear. Mike's voice, yeah. Knew Mike for many years. Mike was one of the early wrestling newsletter guys as well. Very smart individual, fan. He's one of the guys that hung out in the 70s when we go to Madison Square Garden, hang out at the bar upstairs before the show at the bowling alley with Georgianne Acropolis and Richie Merchant from Philadelphia and that whole crew. Got to know Mike, developed a strong friendship with him. And he was actually in attendance when I wrestled Dusty Rhodes. And he still, to this day, every time he comments on my Facebook for a post, and he talks about the superstar that I was in the ring and why I'm not in the WWE Hall of Fame. And so, but Mike is a great guy. And Mike did some amazing things in his career. He was a college professor, and he was a vice president of marketing for RCA Records. He was responsible and in control of the entire Elvis Presley catalog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Mike and I did a lot of business together when I worked in radio, when he was a VP. He also worked early on with Christina Aguilera when she first launched. So he had a storied career, and he's still out there. He still goes to shows. And what a wonderful, wonderful guy Mike Omansky was. And these tapes that he put out through Worldwide Entertainment Marketing, because he had all of those connections with distribution and marketing, and he was able to get all of this great classic wrestling footage and some of the best quality stuff from the eras that preceded what we cover on Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I mean, the Buddy Rogers, Pat O'Connor match from Kaminsky Park. He had that on one of his volumes, and the Tolos brothers and the Kangaroos. And if you could find those sets anywhere on VHS, or if they're on YouTube, I don't know. But just a smart businessman and just a very dear friend from all those years ago.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool too because he was really focused on the classic tapes and stuff. I liked him talking about how he was working with Donnie Libel on some of these things to get him to write people, and I think it's in his conversation with Donnie and Mike that we're going to play here in a little bit because I do have one of Donnie's capsules, and then he has a few questions to ask Mike, and I do believe in there they even mentioned that there's somebody that had never gotten copies of the tapes or seen certain matches that he had been in, and then he goes, "Oh, that'll change." He goes, "I'll get a hold of them and send them," and it's just really cool,
Yeah, that's why with John Tolos, who didn't have any footage of him and his brother teaming up until this tape came out, we were able to get him a set, and Donnie with the Kangaroos, of course. I mean, yeah, so a very cool thing that Mike did, and to this day, just nothing but fond memories.
And he was in studio this entire episode, and each time you went to the callers, he had a trivia question, and whoever answered it got a free tape.
Yeah, that was his way of promoting his new set coming out.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. This is Donnie doing his capsule and talking to Mike for a little bit. It's a little bit longer because I left in the Mike stuff, but just thought it was solid.
Okay, we're back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We were just going over during the commercial break. Everyone was kind of jovial here, laughing at some information that we've been hearing elsewhere. But anyway, because he's been holding for quite a while, and as we do each and every week, we're going to be joined by Don Libel. Don?
Hello, John, and hello, Mike. How are you?
Good, Donnie. How are you?
Very good. Glad to hear there are more tapes coming on the way, and glad John Tolos will be able to start getting a few things. It's a shame that people are in a sport so many years, and some people just don't collect things, and when they might like to have a few things, it's a shame they don't. And you provide a pretty good service there.
Yeah, I think so. As a matter of fact, we have a match with the Tolos brothers that I think I picked it out because it shows them at their very best. The Greek-Canadian Wrecking Crew really showing off all their moves, tremendous double teaming, lots of good individual moves. But one of the few one-sided devastating matches I've included on the tapes only because it showcases these guys so well.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 falls and the whole deal. It was great.
Yeah, and it goes down to straight falls.
Don,
well, John,
what's happening?
Before we get into, I have several questions for Mike. I just want to give a Pro Wrestling Spotlight news capsule for this week, which starts off in the South. After a month's hiatus from professional wrestling after disagreements with promoters, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert has returned to the United States Wrestling Association. Gilbert returned to the ring on a card presented in Memphis, Tennessee's Mid-South Coliseum recently by coming out of the crowd and attacking Jerry the King Lawler after a match with Jim Cornette's Fabulous Ones, Steve Kern and Stan Lane, by throwing fire in the King's face. And now Gilbert is currently appearing in both the Texas and Tennessee territories of the USWA. Matt Bourne, the son of former wrestling great Tough Tony Bourne, made his debut for World Championship Wrestling at their latest television tapings in Atlanta's Center Stage. In the same fashion as when Hillbilly Jim and the Earthquake made their debuts for the World Wrestling Federation, Bourne, billed as Big Josh, jumped into the ring as an average fan out of the stands to give Tommy Rich a helping hand when he was being double-teamed. And according to reports in the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly, before the March 21st WCW title match pitting Nature Boy Ric Flair and Tatsumi Fujinami in Tokyo, Japan, has taken place, a second meeting between the two champions is already in the works for a May date during a pay-per-view in either Atlanta or Tokyo. And Fujinami recently captured the International Grand Prix Wrestling belt from fellow countryman Riki Choshu. And sources close to Cactus Jack are claiming that he will be touring the Orient for the All Japan promotions headed by Giant Baba in the near future. Appearing for the Universal Wrestling Federation last Friday, Cactus is said to have stole the show as far as the fans were concerned. And remember, Jack will be challenging Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in Philadelphia on March 2nd for Tri-States Wrestling Promotions. The World Wrestling Federation has announced 10 matches for its WrestleMania show in the Los Angeles Sports Arena next month. Among the latest to be added is Virgil, with Rowdy Roddy Piper in his corner, taking on the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. And a couple other notes from the World Wrestling Federation. On television this week, we saw Percy Pringle make his initial appearance as Paul Bearer, the new manager of Kane the Undertaker. Brutus Beefcake also made an appearance running in under a mask. And as John, you and I spoke earlier about Ricky Steamboat will be coming back and blowing fire as a dragon. And,
yeah, he will be called the Dragon, right?
I'm sure you've heard a little more about how Ricky the Steamboat is learning how to blow fire.
That was interesting to see yesterday on television. He did a good job at it. I'm telling you that. I'm just a little concerned when he gets out there in the ring. Hope his son isn't nearby when he's blowing that fire around. The little dragon.
If I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago, didn't Stevie Aoki, who was in the World Wrestling Federation, was doing the same thing? Maybe, Mike, you might remember some of that.
Who was that?
Stevie Aoki. This was about 3 or 4 years
ago. He did it very briefly. They brought it into some of the major arenas, Madison Square Garden. He came in. People thought it was Jimmy Snuka coming out because they said Superfly and had all this outfit. Then they quickly saw that it wasn't him. But the Stevie Aoki thing lasted maybe about a month.
Yeah. And how about this for a spot show? February 27th, the New Jersey-based National Wrestling Federation will be sending some of their wrestlers, such as Abdullah the Butcher, Larry Winters, Wendy Richter, going to Athens, Greece for a show, February 27th. They will return on the 28th. So
one show.
But, having Mike there, John. Mike, how do you choose? What's the process of getting these matches to be on the tape? Because I'm sure someone with your knowledge and your interest, and especially in certain wrestlers, how do you decide on who gets on and who may have to wait for the next volume?
A very fair question. Essentially, I'm looking for a dual target audience. Diehard wrestling fans, people who listen to this show, I think represent part of the audience. The other part of the audience that I'm looking for is a nostalgia audience, people who have fuzzy, happy memories from their childhood or remember their grandfather watching wrestling on Saturday nights, and the people who are the Hulk Hogans and Roddy Pipers of that day, which would be people like Buddy Rogers, Bobo Brazil, Anthony Naraka, etc. People who are broad-based, had maybe an East Coast, West Coast notoriety because it was very fractionalized in those days. So that's the basis. And I also look mostly for matches where we get top people of that era against each other, as opposed to having very one-sided matches, which I'll put on occasionally. In the case, for example, the Tolos Brothers, if it showcases them so well, I'll make the exception. But I'm looking for the top people against each other, and it essentially comes down to a judgment as in the 50s, the 60s, who was on top the longest, and that's who we include.
Now, were you pleased with the reaction from your first two volumes from the fans? And what was, if any, was your reaction from any of the wrestlers that were on there?
The reactions that we've gotten were quite positive all the way around. And they, first of all, one thing that you look for at when something hits retail, like a video, and this is a sell-through because we priced it so people afford to buy these. It's a $14.98 list price for a 1-hour tape. And we found that where we were able to get in, and we've gotten pretty good distribution, including in mass merchandisers like the Kmarts of the world, the inventory turn is terrific, meaning that where Wrestling Classics goes, it turned out to be one of the best-selling videos per store of anything they carried, regardless of category and price. As far as the wrestlers go, people, as I said, I mentioned Al Costello earlier, who you had referred me to, and he was pretty happy with it. And we know that Lou Albano liked the tapes, and Bruno Sammartino, and a number of others. So the reaction has been very favorable. Obviously, as we said when we came on John's show the last time, there would be 2 more volumes coming out, and here they are. And as of March 1st, it'll be available nationally, including in a lot of places in the New York area.
Yes. Mike plugging away. Donnie fascinated and excited about the new series of tapes. I just love hearing those guys have dialogue with each other.
Me too. I just like when Donnie's all like, "You got that guy? I've got some questions for him."
Yeah.
Immediately, it's like, this is going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, Donnie's still that way. Like I keep saying, I got a call from him the other night just because he's covering baseball with the Pittsburgh Pirates down there in Bradenton, Florida, and he's opinionated and he is old school and he's Donnie.
That's awesome.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Is he still in New York? He moved away from New York, right?
He's in Florida. He's in Bradenton.
He's in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's retiring, fully retiring in May.
Really? So he's not going to be taking a bunch of photos and stuff for the games this year?
No, he's doing that. I mean, that's a side gig.
Oh, okay.
He's been working in the medical industry for many, many years.
So then he can go full-time baseball.
Well, he'd like to.
Yes, I'm saying.
Yeah, he loves and Donnie's such a great journalist. I mean, and he's been posting some incredible wrestling stories right now. He just did one on Paul Heyman that came out in the Bradenton Times, and I think it's WBIX, which is his old stomping grounds up in near Utica, New York. So he's still very active. He writes almost every day, and he's writing baseball articles and the wrestling, Confessions of a Wrestling Junkie. And he's doing this little series, and he's talking about ECW and on Heyman. And I told him, you got to write a book, man.
Yep.
Got to write a book about those years in wrestling.
Yeah. Let's see. You had a couple people come through. I like that you did have James and Jim from Seaford and Evan from Great Neck and all them. But there was two more guests that were particularly notable. One of them, Dr. Mike Lano.
Yeah.
On for a bit.
It could have been the only time he was ever on.
You think? I feel like you had him on like more than once, but I
don't know.
Like you had him on much.
A couple times, less than a handful. Let's put it that way.
For sure. So this was a kind of a longer interview, but it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting. He was so into Japanese wrestling. Like,
yeah,
he went to Japan.
Yeah, he
like,
booked Jim Cornette in Japan and didn't tell Jim.
Did Jim go?
No. Well, he said he booked him. He's the one of the most infamous characters in the whole history of the wrestling business, man.
Yeah, that's why I like every time I hear him come up. So I compiled a couple bits from it and squished it into one clip.
And we're also going to be joined for our second hour, not for the entire hour because he's calling long distance from California, and even though it's Sunday morning, it's still costly. Dr. Mike Lano. He's known as the Wrestling Dentist. Let's join Mike right now. Boy, I got a toothache today.
Johnny, I'd be too tired. I'd get a malpractice lawsuit if I were to fix your tooth right now.
Well,
I must be awful worried that a lot of these guys just don't call right up when they're supposed to. If you know the sleeping habits of wrestlers, sleep all day and work all night.
Well, that's why we didn't give you a wake-up call, Mike, because we figured that you're a dentist, a wrestling dentist, that you're on call 24 hours a day, and once you have an appointment, you're never late for it.
That's right. And I wanted to let you know, John, since I've known you a long time, just how proud I am that your show is, I don't need to tell you that it's the #1 wrestling radio show in the world.
In the world?
In the world. They don't have it in Japan, so you're it, John.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. And for those of you out there, the fans who don't know, matter of fact, Mike, I go back with you, I guess, since I think we started corresponding for the first time. I think it was a little after that.
Maybe 72, whenever you started.
I started the Blassie Fan Club in 72.
Okay, yeah, so it's almost right after the second issue.
And you were one of my members from California, and you became the vice president of the King of Men fan club, Fred Blassie Fan Club. And matter of fact,
you turned me on to run the Tolis Brothers fan club. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't gotten turned on to writing and talking about wrestling from you.
Well, it was great because I won the fan club of the year in 1974, and of course in 1975, your club for Tolis won the fan club of the year.
The tag team of they weren't sheets then; they were just wrestling newsletters.
But it was an interesting time back then, and we were just reminiscing. I was reminiscing during the news break with Mike Omansky here, and Mike remembers you attending the IWA shows. That's where he met you at the Roosevelt Stadium.
Yeah, in fact, you and I talked a few months. We said that was probably our fondest memory when actually probably the second show when they had in that room Inoki, Ricky Starr, Thez, all these greats. It was a dream come true.
Captain Lenny was there too, though.
Who was there?
Lenny Dalber.
Captain Lenny.
Yeah, that was probably the most fun I'd ever had at those two shows. The first show, you remember, it rained and people were throwing junk into the ring.
Right, that was Mil Mascaris against Evan Koloff.
No, the American fans are, well, I won't say that. I wish they were just as well behaved as the fans I saw in Japan who sit quietly. They're allowed to throw streamers and shoot off fireworks and things like that when their favorites get in there. The crowd controls themselves. And unlike what you see in the States now, everything can happen.
Well, Mike, you just came back. When did you get back from Japan?
I went, and we arrived on the 2nd of January and stayed, and then left on the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going right back with Dave Meltzer from the 8th of March all the way through Tokyo Starrcade. Then we're going to come back to Cauliflower Alley on the 23rd maybe not WrestleMania the 24th.
Maybe
I'm going right back to see the Starrcade show, and I wish I was almost staying around. If you've heard, the main event's been changed for the McMahon combined WWF SWS show. Now it looks like Tenru and Hogan they're going to be split up.
Oh, really? It's going to be singles matches now?
Yeah, it's going to be singles matches now, and it looks as if, God, I'm trying to look right here and see. Well, it doesn't really matter, but Hogan and Maeda were supposed to meet the Road Warriors in a tag match. Now it looks like the Tucanos are going to meet the Road Warriors. Hogan is going to meet somebody else in a singles, and then they're going to have the closest thing to Maeda.
Tenru?
Yeah, Tenru's going to be...
Maeda's not on that card, is he?
No. I'm sorry. Tenru is going to be meeting, not Funaki, but... God, I can't even... it's too early here. I can't even find out what the match is going to be.
Okay. In the Pro Wrestling Torch, Wade Keller just published his excellent yearbook, and I recommend it for anyone who's a wrestling fan. They had several articles on... I guess you went along with 9 other people over to Japan on this tour.
Tokyo 10.
And of course, in your practice, you are a dentist and you give free dental work for any wrestler that gives you a call. And
that's right. Cactus Jack and Billy Jack Haynes, they still are supposed to come back in to get their final bridge replacement. So those guys are listening. They better come in and get that stuff.
And of course, Mike, you're the wrestling dentist, and I understand you have a 900 number. I'm going to have you plug that, and we'll take a commercial break here. What's your 900 number there out there, Mike?
You want me to say it? It's 1-900-990-6676, and I have 7 different lines. One of them happens to be Japan, and one also happens to be nostalgia. So I get a kick. I just played the interview that got the greatest response was Vern Gagne in 72 talking with Vince Jr., lauding him to the skies and all that. So if Vince Jr. listens to this, I'm sure he'll appreciate that interview being played.
Well, lots of interesting stuff on Dr. Mike's 900 number. One more time, just give the number out real quick.
Thank you. 1-900-990-6676. It's 95 cents a minute, and kids under 18, of course, have to get parents' permission.
Okay, and I will expect that commission check next month. Mike, listen, we appreciate it for you coming on today, explaining to us a little bit about your Japanese trip, and best of luck with all your endeavors, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other face-to-face again.
Okay, am I through?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
That's about it for today, because we have a couple special guests that were unexpected coming in.
Well, say hi to Mike for me.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, we're going to be back with more of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight with a couple of special guests that will be joining us in just a few minutes. We'll be back.
This is Women. Don't touch that dial, wrestling fans. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight with Johnny Anthony Arezzi will return after this short timeout.
Classic.
Johnny Anthony
Arezzi. Oh, I loved that woman.
Oh,
I did.
She was always good to you.
Yes, we had a wonderful relationship, and I was smitten by her, and she was just can't say enough good things about Nancy, and what a tragedy. And but on a lighter side, Dr. Mike, he was not happy that I got him off quickly. He thought maybe he'd spend a lot more time. Mike is an interesting cat, man. Yeah, gave him enough time, but he was the wrestling dentist and doing bridge work for Cactus Jack and Billy Jack Haynes. I think he worked on Abdullah the Butcher's mouth too.
Right. And he would do them for little to nothing, right?
Yeah,
the wrestling guys,
pretty much. Yeah. And then they'd have to go get everything repaired by another dentist.
Yeah. Then he also really fancied himself a Japanese expert. Like,
yeah. He certainly was.
How often was he out there? Because he was in Japan.
He went back and forth. He did several stops in Japan, and Mike is could write a book on Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, we go so way back, and the first cassette I got of him, and I don't know if I should put it up for patrons, but we used to exchange audio cassettes with each other.
like voicemail messages. But
Yeah. They were like a whole tape, and he'd say, "Hi, it's Mike Lano," and he would send a message, and then he'd tape some of the California wrestling TV stuff, and I would in turn send him tapes of WWF TV promos and stuff like that, and and then it took an ugly turn after a few years. When he visited me, well, he brought me out to California. He invited me out to California to see the Battle Royal in '74, and my first airplane trip. He was very close friends with Richard Dawson's kids, Mark and Gary. Spent the weekend there. Went to the Battle Royal with them, and then Mike came to New York for one trip in '74 and spent a week with us, and then in '75 he announced that he was coming and spend the summer with me. My family wasn't that enamored with that, and he came back a little cocky, a little there were some things that went on, and I had to throw him out. And I got a 12-page apology letter from him, which I still got. And we've had this on back and forth relationship, but he's one of the most unique, eccentric personalities in the business. And I have to correct something that he always says, that he started shooting wrestling in 1966, which is certainly he would have been 8 or 9 at the time. So.
Well, he probably found something he like a photo he took in '66 and goes, "Up, see, that's when I started doing it professionally."
You got to dive deep into the Mike Lano history. I mean, the canvas cavity show that he did. He said he dressed himself up as a dentist, and he had this little public access TV show, and it was on for a long time. He had YouTube channels, and I don't know who penned him, Oddity Fanboy, but that has been a moniker that has stuck with him.
That's awesome. So, do you think Isaac Yankem was a more or less evil wrestling dentist?
Well, Isaac Yankem was better known as Kane.
Yeah.
Was an evil wrestling dentist, yes.
Yeah.
Isaac Yankem.
Yeah. I wonder if Isaac Yankem was based off Lano.
Wouldn't that be interesting? I never even thought of that.
Yeah, because I mean, the story was he was Jerry Lawler's dentist.
Yeah,
I want to go back and find old Jerry Lawler promos about Yankem, because he had them. Because before they brought him on, and he would be talking to us, like, "That's my dentist. He does XYZ." I'm going to see if anything rings a bell.
Do that research.
Yeah.
You have a fascination with dentists these days.
Yeah, I'm getting to know them really well.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we're pals now. And then this last one is a surprise drop in, but a consistent surprise drop in, and so it made me happy to hear it again.
Okay.
I understand we got a special guest coming on. Honky Tonk Man is on the phone.
You'll find out.
Hello.
Hello.
Honky.
Hello, John.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Greatest of all time.
Yes, of course. I understand you had a wild one last night in New Jersey.
Yeah, I just want to let you know and everybody know I got my man. I got Greg the Hammer Valentine last night at Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Well, we're glad to hear that.
Well, wasn't it a double disqualification, Honky?
That's what they say. He pushed the referee first, and I ended up pushing the referee second, so both guys are disqualified. But I want everybody to know I got my hands on Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Well, I missed that show last night, unfortunately, and it'd have been great to see that, because that was a match that everyone was clamoring to see, and obviously you'd left the Federation, and Valentine was in and out. Some matches were scheduled or were supposed to be for UWF, which never took place for legal reasons, so to speak. But
I wouldn't go so far as to say legal. I'd say insufficient funds, maybe.
Well, you were yeah, I guess you were in
Let's
this.
put it that way.
You're in the same boat of a lot of people. Believe me, you're in the boat of a lot of people. But where are you? Are you in Jersey right now?
Yeah, I'm at the Newark Airport.
And you were listening to the program?
I thought I'd just call you because I knew that you'd be on the line right now. I knew you'd be on the airwaves.
Well, this is a great surprise for us, because we had so much response from your first appearance here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And matter of fact, in this week's Pro Wrestling Torch, they transcripted some of your first appearance in the Pro Wrestling Torch, and it was just great to have you on with us, And this is a great surprise, And are you going to be coming back in this area anytime soon? You have any other appearances lined up?
let me check real quick. It'll only take me a second to find out. I think I'm going to get my hands on Greg Valentine one more time.
Oh, really? We'd like to know where that's going to be.
Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Let me check the date just to be sure.
Okay.
April 11th, April 12th, and April 13th.
And that's going to be where?
Bernardsville, New Jersey, Perth Amboy, and Middletown, New Jersey.
Who's promoting those shows?
Dennis Galan's got 2 of them, and Smokin' Joe's got the other one.
Well, I spoke to Smokin' Joe. He was at that UWF show Friday night, and I did see him there. And he's going to come on the air with us and give away some tickets. And I'm glad that you'll be coming back into the area. Now, where you headed now? You heading back to Memphis?
Going back to Memphis, 4 days rest, and then I'm going to California.
Oh, really? What are you going to be doing out there?
I've got some shows out there for a Denver promoter.
Wow, that's great. So you keep him busy, and you'll be going overseas too soon?
That's what I understand.
Well,
I'm waiting on a confirmation on that. I should get it next week.
Well, this has been a real pleasure having you on with us today, and surprised a lot of us, and I'm glad to see that you're back out there wrestling.
And as Dave Meltzer's listening, I just want to say one thing to him.
All right.
I am so glad that he stood his ground, that he didn't knuckle down. He didn't get like a church mouse and run off in a corner. He stood his ground on what Titan Sports said was all kind of lies and libel that he printed in the newspaper.
Well, you did receive Dave's bulletin over the last few weeks, I gather.
Yeah, I did read it. Someone sent it to me, and I'd just like to congratulate him for standing up, being a man.
Well, that has certainly been a volatile situation in the wrestling world right now, and I'm sure you've had your opinions on that as well with the main event at WrestleMania, and you're not in that organization now, and
It's one thing to have the wrestlers dictated to, but then it's another thing for a promoter to try to dictate everything to the general public, and even to go so far as to try to dictate to the newspapers and newspaper coverage.
well, that's certainly I'm not going to disagree with you at all as far as that. I think everyone should be reported on fairly and objectively, regardless of who you are.
Exactly.
Well, Honky, listen, you sound like you're in the airport, and when's your flight?
In about 10 more minutes, and I've got to go. I just wanted to say that I got my hands on Greg Valentine last night in Woodbridge, New Jersey. That was one of the biggest independent shows done so far this year.
Well, hopefully we'll see you when you come back in this area, and thank you very much for calling in.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Wow, big surprise there. Honky Tonk Man calling into the show.
And I guess he's happy he got his hands on Greg Valentine.
He sounded that way, didn't he? Yeah. I was surprised Valentine was at that show last night.
I'm surprised, too.
Nice way to close it out. Honky Tonk Man, surprise call.
I love that you go, you're listening to the show? And you go, no, I just know you're recording.
I know you're on the air right now. So
yeah. He knew what time you were on and knew your number to call.
Yeah, well, he did that once on EVD and pissed off Terry Funk, if you remember.
Yeah, it was great.
Honky Tonk, you're a moron.
You are a moron. Which is also funny when you think about it. Those juxtaposed together, this is on the heels of Dave Meltzer getting in some heat for writing those articles about WWF.
Yep.
And people started saying he was like employed by the WWF at a certain point, and so he kind of clarified that in a bulletin recently as well. You have Honky Tonk saying that he's proud of him for standing up being a man, and then you fast forward a year or two, and he calls in being like, I just came from the feds. I gave everything up about Vince.
All right, yeah. I just dropped a dime on Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Honky Tonk. And Conan was there. Oh, that was a class. That's another classic show. My God. This was a classic show. These two.
A good month. This was a good month for you.
So this is what we're going to be doing as Rewind launches. And we got a couple of shows that from March years ago that we're going to do on the next episode of the Best Ofs here, and then get into the college show stuff.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I'm
excited to hear college one.
The Napolitano 1985 one show at NYG, and then we'll kick it off with the monthly review, rewind of all of this stuff all over again. So we got a lot to look forward to.
What I'm excited about most is potentially hearing, do you know if, because you heard him, Mac, do you know if your intro, how you doing, wrestling fans, did that start early or did you get to there?
I think I always did it.
You think you started from
the beginning?
I know. No matter what the topic is, it's your go-to start, and I love it so much.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. How you doing, wrestling fans? How you doing, baseball fans? How you doing, Met
what
fans?
did I do today when we taped with Terry Collins?
Yeah.
How you doing, Met fans?
Yeah, how you doing, Met fans? I'm like, this is awesome. It's such a happy, welcoming intro, and it's so simple, but it's also so identifiably you.
Yeah.
No one else does that, and why not? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a slam dunk.
Yeah,
You know?
I like it. It's my moniker.
Yeah. It's great. How you doing, Arezzi fans? Welcome to Pro Wrestling
Hey!
Spotlight Rewind.
Let's
you
talk
know?
wrestling and baseball.
Yeah.
I gotta marry those two worlds together somehow.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited when we go to the college ones to hear when that first starts. If it's just your knee-jerk reaction to being on the radio, or if you get to a point where you're like, this is what I want.
Imagine if it started in 75.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Well, I guess we'll
Be
find out
amazing.
soon enough, won't we?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I hope other people are into this little looser format. It's a little less heavy on the notes and the breakdown of the minute by minutes, but it's a little heavier on the clip. So I'm still trying to keep it a little
Let's
balance.
do
On
it.
the
I like
conversation.
this. I like where we're going with this. I like it keeping it light. Because we're rewinding, and this is really like, it's the cool stuff, it's the fun stuff, it's the feel good stuff, and of course there'll be heavy shit that we'll be rewinding and listening to. But
Yeah.
I like where it's going, and I think once we put this episode out, which we will in a few days for the patrons, and then to everybody else, I think we'll get a good reaction from it.
Yeah. I know, and I want the reactions and the comments on this. Like, how do you feeling about this kind of thing? The drop in of the curly mo, stuff like that.
I like that. I like if we can start doing that stuff too. That makes it even better.
Yeah, a little more active. But yeah, I had fun going back to February 91.
Yeah, more to come.
Yep.
Stay tuned. And Marsh, you're the official co-host now of this soiree.
It's nice to get your stripes.
You got a little bump up.
Yeah, it's nice to get the stripes. Yeah, if this was a Star Trek, it'd have an extra little button right there on the collar.
There you go. Well, always a pleasure, my friend, and we'll be taping again really soon and getting that March one out for everybody. Hopefully before I head back out to Florida. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, hopefully before I have to do the wedding.
Yeah, we got to get it in before then.
Yeah,
because I can't interfere in that personal life stuff. You know that. Especially something like this, it's pretty important.
We're all like out there a couple days early, and it's like, hold on, I got to get this thing cut real quick.
Yeah. All right, very cool, my friend. It's great to see you as always, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All righty. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that first little best of. Look forward to the next one. We'll wrap up this first best of special, and then we will prepare for the launch of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind, when we're going to go back 35 years to 1989, do it all over again with a twist. So the March will have another best of, and then the Rewind will kick off, and we'll review all that other great stuff. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter or X and Instagram at John Arezzi. We got those private groups and public groups on Facebook for Matt Memories. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. That is youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And don't forget to check out the sister podcast, Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden, as well. I want to thank our co-host, our producer, creative director, Marsh. I want to thank our Patreon executive producers, Anthony Pyrus and Joe Holloway. And for each and every one of you patrons for helping support with the production costs for the show. Until next time, when we relive more history with you on another best of, this is John Arezzi for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.